All right, it is championship weekend right here in the corner. That's where guys like Randy and myself spent a lot of our days in elementary school in the corner. So we call this the college football corner.
That's right.
Talking too much in class, probably about college football. So
Yeah.
so here we are, week whatever, 15, 14, I don't know where we're at, but we're the final week, the week of their only champions are playing, or people that aspire to be champions. Everybody else is idle, waiting to find out if they're going to get in, who's in. So it's Randy at Fletch, it's College Football Corner, YouTube, subscribe, bells, and Facebook. Give us a like. We're going to chop it all down and tell you what's going to happen this weekend and what to look forward to, what the possibilities are, all kinds of things going on. So we got the CFP rankings that came out last 2 nights ago. Nothing real surprising. Did you find anything really surprising? It was kind of an uneventful weekend.
Yeah, no, not really anything surprising. The thing that'll be surprising is whenever it comes out Sunday after what happens this weekend. That's going to be surprising.
Right, right. If you watched it at all or seen some clips of it after it happened, one of the big things is they literally said, teams that are idle this weekend in comparison to each other, not the teams that are playing, they can jump each other, even though neither one are playing, based on what happens in the championship games, which I thought was interesting. And
Yeah.
to be honest, I have some strong feelings about a lot of this. It's starting to get to the point to where, they're like, because they're always saying our job is to get the best teams in.
Right.
So that's so subjective because let's say a team that's an underdog by 2 touchdowns wins by a late field goal. Could they say, well, I know you won the game, but we think the other team's better, so we're just going to put them in? I mean, it's got what happens on the field's got to matter somewhat, and we talked about that. So, let's the rankings are what they are. They're online. You don't need us to rehash them. I want to start before we get into the game, but just in general on teams. I want to start with Alabama. They moved up over Notre Dame into number 9.
Yeah.
I I personally feel, and I think it'll be this way, because they don't want to punish teams who anybody that is in the field right now that's playing a championship game shouldn't find themselves out of the field if they lose the championship game because they're playing an extra game. And,
Right.
and so if Alabama were to lose to Georgia, they would be a 3-loss team. They're getting in. I think everybody agrees with that. It sounds like everybody I've heard on radio and stuff, even if they're boat raced, although you never know what that do with that garbage. So do you pretty much feel the same way? I would imagine you do.
Well, I think that I think what's happening is that they're just, and we've talked about it several times, is that they're just killing these championship games for the conferences because here you have big games. Indiana, Ohio State, should be really exciting. Two undefeated teams, one versus two. The history of Georgia and Alabama. They're going at it. And then you really think about it, and you're like, well, it doesn't matter who wins Ohio State, Indiana. They're both in.
Right.
Does it matter who wins Georgia, Alabama? They say no, but I'll believe that when I see it.
Right.
But still, yet you have these teams playing these big games, which should matter a whole lot, and you got 8, 9 other teams that are in the conversation, sitting on the couch watching these games, hoping that they can jump them.
Right.
So there's just I just have a real problem with the way that is playing out. I mean, I don't think you should penalize a team that's playing in the conference championship. I mean, they played, they did their part to get to those places. I mean, let's face
Right.
it, in the Big Ten and the SEC, I can't say that so much in the other conferences, but I mean, those teams have worked hard to get where they're at.
Sure.
Now, I mean, especially in the SEC because they have matched up against each other. I mean, we've seen Alabama, Georgia, we've seen
Texas, Georgia.
right. So the thing we're waiting for is what we haven't seen, other than we've seen Oregon and Indiana. We haven't seen Indiana, Ohio State,
Right.
Ohio State, Oregon. Those kind of games. But so I guess what I'm saying to answer your question, I don't think it should matter. I just don't like the direction that it's going and the meaning of it, how it's playing out.
I agree because there's too much. What are they going to do? Because of how they've done things in the past, and it seems like every year it's something different. Remember, it was the eye test. Haven't heard that in a while. That was like
Yeah,
3 years ago. It was all the eye test. Now it's not the
yeah,
eye test anymore. Now it's strength of record. What is that? And strength of
right.
schedule. What is it? So I've heard some neat things that on the radio the past few days that I really like. And that is, if you can imagine right now, here we going into this weekend, we got OSU and IU going to play each other. Let's say they're 1-2 in the whole thing. So let's just say, okay, let's not play that game. Let's play. If you want to give the first four, a bye or whatever you want to call it, or do we
Right.
expand the field somewhat and start it? Maybe not this weekend. Get rid of the championship games. Name your champion however you want to do it, but don't play an extra game for it. Then when you start, let's say you start the CFP in 2 weeks from this weekend or whatever, and you've got teams like down there where we got into Miami and BYU and Texas and Vanderbilt and maybe even Utah. They're playing a game at the same time other people playing, unless you have buys. Which I want to get rid of buys. I want everybody playing the same number of games if it's possible, and they're playing the tournament now to move on. It's all on the field.
Right.
I think 16 is a great number. That would get us all the way down to USC as it is right now, and it'll change a little bit. But if you get out, take away the championship games, then nothing changes. It's 16 top to bottom. Let's go and start doing it. Because with these championship games, 1, 2, and 3 are all playing this weekend, and so is
Right.
Alabama at 9, and that's it. And 4 Texas Tech, 5, 6, 7, 8 aren't playing, and then 11's
Right.
playing.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah. That's what I'm
somewhere
saying.
way out there in non-on land, because they don't do the numbers very far, is Duke. And I don't want to penalize Duke, man. Their conference, and we can always talk about how it's harder to play in the SEC than pretty much every other conference, depending on your schedule that year, because there's so many teams. A&M hasn't played as many tough games as some of the other people played this year.
Right.
It's just the way it fell out. Ohio State played a lot more tougher teams last year than this year in conference, and vice versa with Oregon. So it is what it is. So, but with whoever gets it out of the ACC and whoever gets out of the Big 12, if they're deemed the lesser conferences, if you will, it's all going to work out when you get into the big dance and start playing the big boys. So let's get more teams in from all the conferences. If they're not good, they're going to get beat, but at least they got in. They got beat on the field instead of beat up in some room full of people that you just can't watch every game. You and I probably watch more college football than any of those people voting on this
Oh,
stuff down there.
I guarantee it.
And we don't watch every game. You just can't do it. You got a life, you got kids, you got grandkids, all that stuff. So, get it back on the field. I think 16 would be a great way to go. It's a good starting point. At this point, like I said, we're talking USC. And it's just you. And as far as the conferences can do whatever they want on trying to name who their top 4 is. And they could just say what's going to happen in the ACC probably next year is, hey, whoever's ranked the highest out of our teams in the 16, those are the teams we're putting in. So, but I just all this conjecture stuff is just, I think was a couple years ago when Florida State wasn't allowed to get in. It's only 4 teams because they lost a quarterback. I think
Yeah.
they should have had a chance to go on the field and prove that instead of just had it taken away from them.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that. I don't want to see anything like that. I want to see Alabama, go play Georgia a second time where they've already beat them on their field and maybe lose. Probably not, but let's just say they lose. Now all of a sudden they're not going to get in. That's baloney. And I don't think it's going to happen, and it shouldn't happen to anybody. Now Duke is the outlier because they're not already in. So if they go and lose to Virginia, they're right where they already were. They're not in. They're in the championship game because how the conference does their tiebreakers and all that. But if they win, then they get in. And anybody doesn't like that, that's because the ACC has their way of doing it, and all the conferences need to clean things up to make it where it's earned on the field a little more properly. And I think they'll do that. But the conference championship game's got to go. and and then it's got to be more on the field. 16 is a great number. I really hard to press seeing it go farther than that because all of a sudden the regular season's not going to mean anything. But I think at 16, the regular season would still mean a lot because it would look just like it looks right now, but 16 teams get in. I think that's pretty nice.
Yeah, well, last week, we laid out the perfect scenario for 16 teams.
Yep.
You have 16 teams, you play eight games today, and going into next week, you're basically in the same spot that you would be now with 12 teams.
Yep.
So, I mean, you're not really losing anything. Matter of fact, you're kind of gaining time.
Right.
We had talked about that too, but yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with you. This is becoming, and the interesting thing here, is the BYU, Texas Tech. Everybody, well, what if there's BYU sitting on the outside of this? What if they beat Texas Tech? Well, we talk about the conference games matter or they don't matter. I mean, Texas Tech put a pretty good whomping on BYU a few weeks ago, but now they're saying, well, if BYU comes back and beat Texas Tech, the games either matter or they don't.
Right.
It's just you can't have it both ways, and that's what people are wanting. They're wanting it both ways. If Alabama loses, they should be out. They got 3 losses. But if BYU wins, they beat Texas Tech. Well, Texas Tech could beat
Oh yeah.
back and forth. But I mean, you're absolutely right. The way it's designed right now is supposed to be the 12 best teams. Last year we had. How many teams get in that was ranked like 16, 18?
Yeah, it was a mess.
Yeah, so it's just
the top 4 all lose, which wasn't really the top 4. It was they gave it to the conference champions. They weren't the top 4. That's who they gave it to. They all lost. It was just weird. I mean, yeah, I'm a Buckeye fan. I was glad they won, but it was just weird how it all fell into each other. I think they need to re-rank just like the NFL does. If one wins, then they'll play them. If they lose, they're going to play them. They should reseed after each round. But that's another argument that we'll have to hold for another day, I guess. But yeah, I lost my train of thought. But anyways, yeah, the getting the teams in, the best teams, and having it work out where because I know what it was. Georgia already played Alabama. Texas Tech already played BYU. The only reason they're playing against because it's conference championship game. Eliminate them, and then you don't have the double unless you see them in the CFP tournament, and that's fine because that's where you're going to see potentially somebody, anyways. And try to seed it where where 1 and 2 are going to meet at the end. I think a lot of people last year thought Ohio State and Oregon should have met in the final game just because of where they were in the year, but Ohio State got beat by Michigan, blah blah blah. It didn't matter because they blew Oregon out. It's just one of those weird things, So. But nonetheless, get rid of the conference champions games. Almost guarantee you're going to play somebody twice. Not fully, but almost. And it's happening 2 times this year. Georgia, Alabama, and Texas Tech and BYU.
If they look at the rankings the way it is right now, nothing changes. You could be looking at Alabama and Georgia next week in the playoffs.
Oh yeah. And Duke and Virginia did play each other. That's 3.
Yeah. Well, it'd be for the 3rd time,
Yeah. So
I don't know anybody wants to see teams play for the 3rd time. To be honest with you,
right?
So I think that. I mean, I would, if I was the panel, I would definitely be looking at that. I mean, does it matter if you're rated 10 or 9 or 11? I mean, I don't think it does.
No, yeah, just home games for the first round, no matter who.
Yeah,
so
you're not
lower 8. Exactly.
You're not going to get one if you're 9, 10, 11, or 12.
Right.
Exactly. So, does it make a difference? Yeah, certainly it could, who you're matched up with and all that kind of stuff. But, and the one thing that I do, I look at this and everybody going back and forth, they're arguing this team and this team in. I think one of the most fortunate teams in this, in the rankings, setting at number 8, Oklahoma.
Hmm.
Here's Oklahoma. I mean, they've won the games. Got to hand that to them.
Yep.
Great defense, but they have literally won games where they were totally outmatched on the field in statistics.
Oh yeah.
I mean, their defense played good enough to keep them in the game, to put pressure on the other team, to give them a chance to win. They got turnovers. You can't take that away from them. But here they are sitting there. Nobody's mentioning that.
Exactly.
I mean, if you're going to mention all this other stuff. you got to mention it across the board.
Oh
You
yeah,
know, hey,
it's
they got a team here that's got 2 wins with a total of 400 yards of offense and 20 first downs.
and
Two
not a whole
games.
lot of and not a whole lot of offensive points.
Yeah, I mean that's
Yeah,
in 2 games.
yeah,
Um, like I said, I'm not trying to take anything away from them. I mean
absolutely.
they took care of business. Well, my point is, like I was saying earlier, you can't have it both ways. With the way this thing is going, I mean, it'd definitely be interesting. This cat did that last week, man.
Oh yeah, he doesn't
Um,
like midweek shows.
I'm telling you. Yeah, so it'd
Yeah,
be interesting.
OU. There's no doubt you could make an argument that are they really one of the 12 best teams? Hey, they won. They won the games, and that's what's beautiful about That's why we play these games. Otherwise, we can just shuffle papers all day and go, well, they look better, they look better, and here's our champion. And let's not play any football games. No, the games on the field is what matter. Ohio State last year was the best team on paper, but they didn't look like that the whole most of the year. Even
Right.
though they won some games, they lost to Oregon, they lost bad to Michigan, and it just looked like, hey, what's going on? And then they just turned it on, and thankfully they did. But it's not they had to prove it, and they did. And every team
Yeah, but
should. So OU hasn't had great offense, but man, they still won the games where they needed to win them, and they deserve to be in. I'm glad they're keeping them in, and it should be that way for. Honestly, I think Miami and Notre Dame should both just get in. I think they're both 2 loss teams,
right.
and they're there. And while they're tinkering with that, it's just hilarious. And if Duke gets in over either one of those 2 teams, that just shows you how flawed this thing is going. No offense to people
Well,
at Duke, man.
that's what I was going to say. And the other thing I was going to say, you were talking about the Ohio State last year having those losses. Those weren't big. Those weren't big mismatches. That wasn't
Oh yeah,
one team absolutely dominating, and having a pretty close score. Those were very close games. I think,
yeah.
as a matter of fact, and at least in the Oregon game where Oregon won that, I think Ohio State actually outplayed Oregon in that game.
Yeah, the
So
lead changed, I think, 5 times in that game, and it was a 1 point win. It was a
yeah,
great game, but yeah, it wasn't like something anybody dominated.
well,
And
but
then,
that's
yeah, exactly.
that's what I'm saying. The difference in that. So it's going to be it's going to be interesting. I just have no idea what the committee's going to do, and to be honest, I don't even understand the committee, how they came up with this committee. I mean, what do you do? Hey, I'll do it.
Well, the one guy I heard on the radio, he was in the committee at some point a number of years ago. Now he's not, and he was telling them the very first thing to do is they wipe the slate, and then they put the first 6 teams up, and they're like, let's vote on these 6 teams. And from the vote that everybody does, they keep the top 4, and they move the 2 to the next group. So 2 drop out of the top. So it's like, well, then you're automatic. So it's just an interesting way. And they say they put them in the computer, and the computer drops them out. I'm like, the computer drops them out, or they vote them out? It's very vague, and I just think there's too much. Just human beings, man. Human beings are going to be biased no matter how hard you try to be as straight and narrow as you can. You're a human. Well, so we need to eliminate it. Not I mean by computers. I mean by let's get your winners and get the field to 16 and let them battle on the field. And we all watch, eat popcorn and steak and ribs and watch it. That's the best way to
Right.
have it.
Oh yeah.
And then you're not killing the game, which I fear so much they're going to kill this game, and I don't want to see what happened to the NFL happen to college football by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think you do either.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. But interesting. Going back and looking into the games coming up this weekend. When we go back, a week ago, that Auburn Alabama game went pretty much the way I thought it would. But Alabama got the turnover at the end and was able to pull that one out. Pretty good.
17 nothing, and then you blink and it's 2020. I mean,
Right.
that just like you said, the weird things happen to Jordan Hare. Emma's waving. So yeah, it's and we've talked about that. Yeah, they were what a 5-win team or something like that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter, and it should matter because rivalries do matter. That's why I call it
Oh,
rivalry week.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Which I noticed the NFL's calling this week rivalry week. I'm like, there's no such thing as rivalries in the NFL anymore. NFL is so messed up. I'm like,
Right.
stop stealing the college football thunder. But yeah, tomorrow games are starting tomorrow, but most of those are somewhat the Power 4, 5, 6, whatever they call the lower.
Right.
The Troy and James Madison, Kennesaw State, and Jacksonville State. Tulane, North Texas is nice. Both those teams are in ranked right now, so the winner is going to be one of the group of 5. And then Saturday, high noon, is BYU, Texas Tech with Miami of Ohio and Western Michigan. We get a little action there. And then it's Georgia, Alabama at 4, Ohio State, Indiana at 8, and then Duke of Virginia is also at 8 too. And we can break those down. There's some good games in there. It's going to be a lot of fun to see how it all shakes out and gets everybody to Sunday where they rattle off the top 12, and then it's people complaining like crazy. I'm sure it will be. So, and what the matchups are going to be, who's going to be aware and who's going to be pitched up against who, to see who's going to be playing in that second round against the bye teams and all that. So
yeah, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen because it's been the year of weird, and it's never going to happen. But in those matchups that we're looking at, I mean, basically, there's 2 games people are going to look at. There's 2 games that has big interest on it. Ohio State and Indiana, 2 undefeated teams, Big Ten championship. Alabama, Georgia, Virginia, Duke. I think Virginia. I think they already beat Duke.
Yep.
And Texas Tech already beat BYU pretty handedly.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, those games, certainly, their fan bases and stuff, and everybody else would be kind of keeping an eye on it. Like me and you do, get the what's going on over here? Oh, maybe I better switch over to that. Looks like a pretty good game. But basically, it's those 2 games this weekend, those 2.
Yeah, Alabama, Georgia, that's just always a great game. I don't know how much implications that's going to move anything as far as it might if Georgia looks like they might finally get a win over Alabama, because it seems like they're always the Achilles heel for Georgia is Alabama. So they're here they are playing them again. And honestly, you and I have talked about this, and I agree. Georgia looks like they're peaking at the right time the last few weeks. So I'm not saying they're going to beat Alabama. I'm just saying to get in CFP and playing a good. I definitely think Kirby doesn't want to have a one and done like they did last year, where they won the SEC and got beat by Notre Dame. So
yeah, I'm not gonna pick against them like I have the last 2 weeks. But maybe I should, because at least they got one of those wins. But yeah, I think you're right. And if you look at the first game between Georgia and Alabama, it was Alabama 8 for 8 on third downs. Simpson completes his first 16, 17 passes. Are they going to be able to duplicate that? Not likely.
And it is neutral field, so to speak. It is Atlanta.
Right,
so.
but 8 for 8 on first downs, and completing your first 7. That's how they built that lead. And of course, Georgia came storming back in the second half. So
right.
Are they going to be able to duplicate? Maybe, hopefully, but I don't think so. I think it's going to just be more of a dogfight. 2 tough defenses. Whose offense is going to show up? I don't know. Right now, Georgia looks a little bit better, a little more steady with Stockton and stuff. It seems like he's kind of surpassed Simpson now from the way it was. In the first 8 games, nobody would have ever said that.
Right.
But I think you can look at those guys now and go, all right, they're pretty even, or maybe Stockton has a little bit of an edge here. But so things have certainly changed there.
Right.
And then Ohio State and Indiana. Man, we just don't know. We know Ohio State. Ohio State has a tradition. They've been there. Now all of a sudden, here comes Indiana in undefeated. A very convincing win against Oregon. With a Heisman quarterback guy. So that's going to be the real test. Can they step up and compete with Ohio State and all their 4- and 5-star guys?
Oh yeah.
That's going to be a big question there.
Yeah, Ohio State's very deep. I'm not sure how deep Indiana is. I'm saying they're not deep. I really don't know what Cignetti's got built there in 2 years to see how deep they are. Can they play 4 quarters with the Buckeyes? Can the Buckeyes have the success against that team that they've had against everybody else all year from a defensive standpoint? I'm thinking this is going to be the best offense they've seen. I think, I know Illinois had a little bit of success against them, but for the most part, they haven't given up more than 16 points. I think one time, I think it was Illinois. So here comes Indiana, who's been dropping 50 on everybody and her brother, except for Iowa. So it's a war of the trenches, and a lot of people thought Michigan was going to be the big test, and they proved not to be as deep as people thought they were. They weren't the team even from last year, let alone the team that won it all 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So and Ohio State
Surprised me.
handled that nicely. Little bumpy in the beginning with a pick and all this, but they never flustered and they got it done. Got that monkey off Ryan Day's back. Nice win. And here we go. And to these players, they want to win conference championships. Right now, they still matter. It would remain to be seen if in the future they're going to have these things anymore. But, a team that hasn't been there 5 years, because Michigan's a 4-year reign, they definitely want to win this, So it'll be interesting to watch that. Alabama, I think if they win the game, I think they're going probably to 5 or 6, and that means they're going to host at Tuscaloosa. And that they probably would love that, Come on down to Alabama. We'll stuff you full of food and send you home.
Then we're right back into that. Do these games, are you penalizing teams for – we're right back into that. If they jump Alabama up 3 spots because they beat Georgia, well, then those games did matter.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like I was saying, you can't have it, but which is it?
Right.
We're not going to penalize a team for playing in the championship. Oh, but wait a minute. Alabama beat number 5 Georgia, and they're sitting at number 10 or whatever. We got to jump them up to 6, and
I would think
put Georgia behind them.
Yeah, Georgia's got to be behind Alabama if they beat them 2 times.
Well, right.
I think. I'm sure. But, the other thing is, check this out. Alabama beats Georgia, and it's a decent game. It's not like a blowout, Not
blowout.
Well, then it's like Alabama's going to host. I think Georgia's going to host. I don't think they're going to drop Georgia from, 3 or 4. They're 3.
5.
Georgia's number 3, right?
No, Georgia's Georgia. They moved Texas Tech in front of Georgia, didn't they?
No, I don't think so.
Or no, I think Georgia is number 3. They moved Texas Tech in front of Oregon.
Yeah, Georgia's 3. They're not going to drop them below 8. I don't think that'd be
you can't drop them. I mean, you can't.
Well, yeah, it's just going to be they get bumped up. Alabama will go over them, and then so they're probably sitting right up there next to them, or 1 or 2 below them at the most. So then all of a sudden they're going to go from a bye to a host. So you got 2 SEC teams hosting. You got probably 2 Big Ten teams, Indiana and Ohio State, on a bye. Oregon's sitting there wondering, and then Ole Miss. You might have the 3 SEC teams hosting games the first weekend. Ole Miss or Texas A&M 7. Wouldn't that be hilarious? There's 4 games of hosting and they're all SEC teams. That'd be crazy.
Yeah. The thing is, we look at those games. Let's look at the underdogs. The underdogs are Alabama and Indiana. Those are the underdogs, and I believe those are the underdogs. So I mean, what happened for them to win? Like I said, some kind of miraculous start like Alabama got last time. I don't think they're going to get that again. So you need to play a flawless game like they did against Auburn. Don't turn the ball over. Get a couple of turnovers. I mean, I'm talking about Indiana and Alabama both. That's what they're going to need to stay in those games and to have an opportunity to win them. If they match up head to head and both teams have a turnover and everything goes like that, well then Georgia and Ohio State are going to win those games. I think the Alabama and Indiana, they need to really play well and need some things to go their way, which we've seen that happen in this year several times. So we don't know.
Yeah, Indiana. I completely agree. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. Protect the ball, and obviously just play your game and play 4 quarters. Don't try to win it in the first quarter. If you can, cool. But we all know teams sometimes you jump out on somebody. Usually when you're playing games of these magnitude, it's hard to that team's probably going to come back. Kirby Smart, second time adjustments. So look at A&M getting blown out by South Carolina, come back and won the game. Second half. So yeah, the teams of usually that magnitude, it's going to be hard to just dominate them from start to finish. So Protect the ball and hope for some, play tough, get a turnover or two. If they make a mistake, capitalize on it, put it in the end zone. Don't kick field goals, get touchdowns, be aggressive,
Yeah.
and then hopefully your defense, got to play good D, otherwise the teams come back pretty quickly. So, yeah, I definitely think Alabama is the underdog as well as I'm seeing the line on
Indiana.
this thing is they're not showing the line on it, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I
but
saw one.
3-9. I mean, what I'm looking at, but yeah, 3-9. That's definitely going to be an Alabama underdog. Indiana 1-2, so it's a tight one, but still an underdog.
Yeah, I was looking at that earlier. They got
BYU is definitely the underdog, and yeah, then Duke, without a doubt, is the underdog, unranked. So
yeah, they got Georgia is a 2.5 point favorite. Ohio State's a 4 point favorite. So on the flip side of that, we say what Indiana and Alabama need to do. Well, if you think that's what they need to do to win, the flip side of that is if Ohio State and Georgia play that kind of game, they may just blow them out.
anything's possible. It's hard to
Very
imagine blowing out at this level, only because of. But you never know. I mean, it's between those four teams. I could see BYU get blown out again by Texas Tech. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope it's a good game. But I just wonder about, and there you go again with that 47 for the jersey. I think of the Jinx. But BYU, they got blown out once. This is on Jerry's World. It could get ugly. And Texas Tech is for real. And honestly, I don't know how Texas Tech matches up against anybody else. But if they win in advance and they get into CFP, it's going to be really interesting who they're playing and where they're playing. Right now, they're sitting number 4 getting a bye. They win. They're going to get a bye. They're not going to drop. And they're going to be waiting to see who they go play somewhere in a neutral site game. It's going to get really interesting. That's a new team. It's got a lot of players and a lot of money. And I don't know how many people have actually watched them too much to really know what they're all made of. I don't know how deep they are, but
well, Texas Tech is that's they got them as a 12.5 point favorite.
right.
That's the biggest lopsided one of the weekend. I mean, other than
Duke and Virginia. That's probably less than that.
No, Duke of Virginia is like 4 points.
Yeah, I was saying it's probably less.
James Madison and Troy.
Oh yeah, what's the line on that?
James Madison's 23.5 point favorite. But
Wow.
Yeah, Duke and Virginia. Virginia's a 4.5 point favorite. So, yeah, I mean, the biggest one that they're calling possibly a heavy favorite in is that BYU Texas Tech game.
Right. So, yeah, I'm obviously got to go with the Buckeyes. Me being a Buckeye fan, I'm not going to pick against them. And the few games that I was worried about this year, they've never had me worry for much longer after the game started. They've pretty much held their business all year long. There's no reason for me to believe that they won't until they show they can't or they don't. Injuries beside, I think they'll take care of business and beat Indiana. And I'm not saying by a whole lot or whatever, just to win the game. Alabama won the game. I'm kind of going with the favorites. I think Texas Tech going to get BYU, and I really think Virginia's going to double up on Duke. Yeah. So with that happening, here we go. So if BYU drops out because he get beat, that means Miami comes up to Notre Dame, and I think they're going to flip them and honor head-to-head, and Notre Dame's sitting at home. And it's not because I hate Notre Dame. I'm not a hater, but head-to-head's got to matter. And they've also played for the same teams because Notre Dame playing a heavy ACC schedule like they started doing a few years ago. They got 4 teams. They've both played the same 4 teams. And I think I heard that the record against those teams is the same. So right. all that's equal, and they got a head-to-head. Miami won it. You got to honor that head-to-head, man. I don't know how you get around it.
Well, I mean, you do. I mean, you got to have head-to-head when teams are ranked like that. But then you also have to have the 12 best teams.
But when they're right next to each other, it's like they just had to be sitting on the bubble. That's the only bad thing.
They are sitting in the bubble, and this is one of the problems, like we were talking about earlier, with the way that they're doing this thing. I mean,
right.
Miami and Notre Dame both are certainly one of the 12 best teams in the country. There's no doubt in my mind about that.
I agree they both are. There's no doubt. And here's another thing. It's about getting the best teams, with the exception of and this is no offense to Group of Five, when you automatically say that the best Group of Five team is going to get highest ranked, no matter where they are, going to get in, you're almost automatically saying somebody that's not the top 12 is going to be in the field because you're getting them in. And I'm not saying they shouldn't get in. I'm just saying that if we expand it and let's let them do it on the field, then you're not just because the way it is now, somebody there like Notre Dame or somebody or Miami isn't even going to get the opportunity to play because a Group of Five is getting in. If not two of them, if James Madison wins and Duke wins, there could be two Group of Fives in there, and then Miami and Notre Dame are getting in. But
well, I mean, what if what if Alabama gets that third loss?
yeah,
They don't penalize them, bounce that. They get bounced out.
right, and yeah, and that's
And then they say, well, they got three losses, and even though they did play that extra game, these other two teams have. Then you have the eye test. If I use the eye test, who looks better? Notre Dame looks better. My opinion, from what I watched, Miami's
yes,
been a little bit
yeah.
sporadic. Like we talked last week, which Carson Beck are we going to get?
I mean, I think Notre Dame's a better team this year. And I think you and I talked about this, but I'd love to see them play Miami again. And then, avenge that loss, so to speak. And then, but maybe Miami still beats them again. Who knows? I was watching a podcast with Kirk Herbstreit and Joey Galloway earlier. It was after the CFP things, and they were talking about what we're talking about right now is what teams look like the eye test and how they select teams and who's playing who. Non-conference games. The Sarkeesian's coming out saying, why do we play Ohio State when we're not getting any credit for it? If they could have played Louisiana Monroe, and they could have been a 2-loss team instead of a 3-loss team. And he's probably right, and they'd look very different. Granted, they lost to Florida. They lost by 25 to Georgia. Those are bad losses, numbers wise. There's not good teams, well, except for Florida. But he's campaigning. I understand that. But so then Galloway says, who did Indiana play in the non-conference? Indiana played Montana, no. They played two FCS teams. As a matter of fact, they didn't play any Power 4 in the non-conference. They had Virginia in the schedule, and Signetti pulled that game and got out of it. He said, I'm going to do what SEC does. They're going to play an SEC non-conference schedule, and we're going to play and I'm not taking anything away from IU. They're a good team. They look great, but they haven't beat great teams. And this year, they didn't have the Ohio States. They had Oregon. They won Oregon. That's their best win. Who did Oregon play? Montana State, which is Power 5 or whatever they call those. Oregon State, which is a good team, but in that Pac-12 too, and Oklahoma State, which was garbage last year and fired the coach this year.
Well, garbage this year.
Yeah, so they had a bad non-conference, and so I heard one guy say something that I thought was very interesting. The fear is they're going to stop doing the non-conference games with the big teams because they're not getting respected for losing a game against a good school, blah blah blah. And I agree with this. And let's see what you think of it. The CFP should say, okay, look, if you want to get in the tournament, you need to play one Power 5 non-conference game. If you don't, fine, you're just not going to get in. And I think that's a good idea. Everybody should play at least one.
Unless you go undefeated, through your conference and win those games, which you should. But the ones we're looking at have losses. So I mean, how does it look when you don't have that? When you don't have a Texas versus Ohio State, when you don't have a
exactly. I mean, how awesome
Notre
was
Dame, Miami?
Yeah, how great was the beginning of this year with all those great games? Alabama and Florida State, Ohio State and Texas. There were a few others, and then last year there was a bunch of other ones. It's stuff you want to see. We don't want to see studs and puds playing each other every week of the non-con because it's going to get boring until you get to the regular season. So Indiana would have had to have played a Power 4 team, in the non-conference. Somebody from the ACC, the Big 12, and you can schedule losers from those. You can play Duke or whatever. So it's not like you can't play somebody, and they still don't fix anything. I just think it's got to be on the field. 16, get it on the field, and let everything just hammer its way out that way, and then. Then Texas is in, then Alabama, which they shouldn't be penalized if they lose that game because it's an extra game. Like you said, you can't penalize people for playing an extra game. That's
you can't
weird.
penalize them for playing an extra game. But I mean, what you do look at the argument with Texas and Alabama both. Alabama gets beat by Georgia. They're sitting there with 3 losses. You look at Texas and Alabama. bounce them out. We're talking about my team here.
I know.
Put in Miami and Notre Dame because here's the deal. Don't lose to Florida State, who has 5, 6 losses, 7 losses, whatever they have. Texas, don't lose to Florida, who has 8 losses. I mean, don't lose those games.
Yep, I agree. I do agree. Win the games.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean those are terrible losses.
Yeah, and it's just kind of weird when I'm sitting here as Team A and I lost to a Power 4 school. And then the Team B over here didn't even play a Power 4 non-con, and they're in. I'm like, well, what if they would have played Georgia? They would have probably that kind. And I get it. It's just weird, you know. And there's too many teams and too many conferences to try to make it all even. So you just play a non-con, you know. And even then, that's not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same as playing Florida State for Alabama, and somebody like Penn State plays. I don't know, West Virginia or something like that. Just somebody lower, or some lower team like Colorado. That would have been a great non-con this year. They're garbage, you know.
Yeah.
So it's never going to be equal. It's just not going to be that way. So you just got to win your league and try to, and then your league needs to put up the best 4, and those are the 4 that go in, and everybody starts playing games on the field, 16. So.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it ends up that they're just going to have to do away with these conference games because, now we're talking,
the championship games.
Right, it's championship games. Now we're talking. I mean, Duke.
Duke
pulls off the win. They're putting them in the. They're probably not going to put them in because the way it's set up, they can actually leave them out.
Right.
It's the best record of the.
It's just a weird tie-breaking record they got. And no offense to Duke, but you shouldn't expect to be able to get in with that many losses. It's not just, and we're not talking 3, we're talking 5. You can't hide behind that.
It'd be a friggin' joke to put them in the friggin' in the playoffs and say this is one of the best 12 teams. That's what they've been talking about all year.
Right.
We want the best 12 teams. Well.
Yep. And that ain't going to get it done. There's no doubt.
No.
So. Yep, I think we're done griping. But it's going to be a fun weekend, especially just seeing who wins these things and what might or may not happen and the weirdness, the chaos, and then see if anybody stood out for the. Do you got a Heisman favorite at all? Do you even pay attention to that?
Yeah, I mean I do. It's not who everybody else is going. Everybody's a quarterback. They have the guy from Indiana. They got the guy from Ohio State. They got the guy from Vanderbilt. To me, the guy from Notre Dame, the running back, Jeremiah
Love.
I think he's the best player in the country. He's my Heisman Trophy winner. Now, he's probably not going to win it. He should definitely be invited to New York. I don't think he's going to win it. I think one of these quarterbacks are going to get it. But I mean, if you've watched this guy and watched the highlights of this guy, I think he's the best player in the country. These quarterbacks have had their moments, not had their moments. I just think. I mean, that's my pick.
I mean, isn't it interesting that the trophy itself is a running back, and years on years, it was a heavily running back award as far as you won it, and then it just seems like it just seems weird taboo to have a running back win the Heisman. I'm like, what are you talking about? It was always running backs, Emmitt Smith, Tony Dorsett, Franco Harris, guys won the Heisman stuff. I like Jeremiah Love, I really do, and I don't think he's going to win it, and it's not because I don't want him to win. I think he is. I can't say he's the best player because there's it's kind of subjective, but he's definitely the best running back in football.
Well,
and he's one of the best offensive players. There's one guy who, and this defense hardly ever gets anybody for the Heisman. Me personally, a little biased on him, and it's not because he's on the team I like. It's because I've seen him play so much, and he's so awesome. And that's Caleb Downs. The guy is absolute lights out at safety,
Well, he
is. But he's I don't think they win the Natty last year if they don't have him the whole season. Nonetheless, he had a punt return for kickoff last year and all that. Between Mendoza and the other guy saying for Ohio State, they're having good years. But I can't sit there and say, man, are they really having the kind of years we've seen in the years past where quarterbacks are just throwing it all over the yard. I mean, it's one thing to be efficient. I love Julian Saint. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks Ohio State's probably ever had. I mean, he'll probably end up being one of the better ones from an efficiency standpoint. The guy just throws it very accurate.
Well, it's going to be real interesting to me. I mean, maybe Ohio State can keep doing what they've done, and they can keep bringing in these 5-star greatest wide receivers going. But I mean, those guys help him a lot.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean,
a lot, and that defense helps him.
Oh yeah, no, there's no doubt.
A lot. Are they going to say,
and
"Hey, we're going to give the Heisman to a first-year"? I mean, that was kind of taboo in the
oh yeah.
past.
Usually, they don't even play him in the first year. Nobody ever played.
Right, and it's been a quarterback because now the running back, he's not near as important as what he was.
Right.
So some years ago, he was exactly Janity last year and Jeremiah Love this year. Other than that, I mean, you look at these games, you say passing, he was 30 for 40. 410 yards. And you look at rushing yards, 60.
Right.
And a lot of times it's the quarterback leading the friggin' team in rushing in a lot of these cases.
Oh yeah.
And so I mean, the running back has just kind of got shuffled back, so it's been quarterback, or a wide receiver, or like you were talking, Caleb Downs. I mean, those kind of guys are going to have to do a tremendous lot to win the thing. Caleb Downs would have to be like the guy from Michigan was.
Yeah. Jazz and Woodson.
He returned 4 punts for touchdowns and a couple of kickoffs, and he's the best defensive back in the country. Now we're talking, but just to say he's the best defensive back and he makes the biggest difference. He's not going to get invited to New York.
Oh, I agree. He won't be there at all. There's no doubt. There was a defensive guy just a few years ago that got to New York, I think, but he didn't sniff the trophy at all. But I can't remember who he was off the top of my head.
There was a linebacker.
I just can't remember who it was.
It was last year, wasn't it?
Was it last year?
Yeah,
linebacker?
I think it was. He had a big bunch of hoopla about that he should have been invited. I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was a year before. I can't keep track. But yeah, there was a linebacker that was. That was all that. You had that guy from who was that guy? That number 5 for
South Carolina? No, he was a South Carolina was a down lineman that was a beast last year.
Yeah, he wasn't a linebacker. I'm just saying
right. He was a beast.
Yeah, he was a beast. Yeah, no doubt.
But no, I agree. It's it's who gets more visibility from nation to nation. What channels It's hard for guys out west to get noticed these days because everybody's watching the East Coast time. Not many games late or being. It's a lot of. Honestly, they ought to make the Heisman Trophy a running back trophy. Get a quarterback. I know they have other stuff for quarterbacks, but trying to pick one that's better than everybody at every position, that's just very subjective. Because like you say, and I completely agree, there isn't any quarterback that could put up the numbers if they ain't got blockers and receivers and maybe legs if they depending on what type of quarterback they are. You got to have all that. Otherwise, you ain't doing anything. I don't care who you are.
Well,
Michael Vick ran more than anybody because he had to.
One thing that we didn't talk about when we was talking about all these rankings and this and that. Now you got Ole Miss sitting there. They don't have their coach. Is Ole Miss going to be Ole Miss without Lane Kiffin?
Well, apparently they got I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head. Maybe I'll think of it. But the offensive coordinator is coming back to call the plays.
Oh, is he? Well, I mean, they gave Golding the job for the head
the
coach
defensive
job.
Coordinator, I think, is the head coach,
and if you
the
look
play caller is going to come back. So it's kind of like it should be. Everybody but Lane is there, and so they feel like they should be okay.
That's not going to happen. I'll tell you right now, the head coach matters a lot.
Yes, yeah.
And that's and if you look at, I was going to say, if you look at the hires that's gone on, you look at LSU Lane Kiffin way up here, Texas, Virginia Tech with Franklin way up here, and that the goalish guy going to Auburn and this and this and this, the guy that's going to Florida, up here. Then you look all the way down at the bottom of the list and you see Golding.
Yep.
At Ole Miss. I mean, he's like number. They got 10. They list 10 changes. He's 10.
And I think the reason why they did that is to say, this is the coach, everything's fine, to try to keep as many people from jumping the ship. Because they think, Lane's going to take everybody with him. None of these guys will be here. We're going to start jumping in the portal. okay, this guy's staying. He's the coach. Boom. And I don't know how much that'll work or not. But
Well, the media's sure not helping.
no, yeah, yeah.
They're saying that you made the worst hire out of all the teams that hired a new coach. You
Oh,
made the
man.
worst hire. Oh, by the way, we'd like to keep all you guys here.
Yeah, yeah. I know. It's a show to leave one of those words out. Did you also heard that? I mean, think about Penn State, first one to fire, and they still ain't got a guy yet. And they were trying to get Sataki from BYU, I guess. And here's the funny part. I heard this today on the radio. One of the biggest contributors to BYU for money is the guy that started the Crumble Cookie Company. Have you heard of Crumble?
Yeah.
Those big cookies. There's one in Beaver Creek.
Yeah.
The guy who started that company is a big donor for BYU. So he put up the money for BYU to offer for Sataki to stay at BYU, which he's already said he's doing. So James Franklin at signing day yesterday has Crumble cookies laying out on the table where his signees are doing as a shot across the bow to Penn State for firing him. He's trolling them, putting Crumble cookies on there. That's the guy that kept you from getting somebody you wanted. And the rumor last I heard is that Bo Diaz, who's the head coach at Duke, he was a defensive coordinator under Franklin before he came to Duke at Penn State. That might be who they're left trying to get when it's all said and done, once Duke loses this weekend probably, to get him to come to Penn State if he wants to come to be a head coach up there, because he's already been there once, so you never know. But, man, if Penn State don't get him, I don't know who they're going to get. I don't know if Brian Kelly would even go there.
Oh, they could, if DeBoer gets beat on Saturday, have him.
Will you drive down and give him a ride up?
Yeah.
Rain to get in the bus, and he'll be driving down there in the bus.
I mean, just unfortunately, the way things have gone for the last 19 years, 18 years, 3 losses is not acceptable right now for Alabama. I mean, it's not.
And it'd be 2 years in a row.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's,
when's the last time Saban lost 2 years in a row when he was at Alabama? If he even did it. Maybe early. Huh?
07, when he first came in, he lost to Louisiana Monroe.
Right.
I mean, but they righted that ship pretty quickly. So I mean,
exactly.
I mean, it's going to happen. I mean, you can't. These teams that are going to rise to the top, Alabama rise to the top. They were very fortunate to stay there as long as they did. That was probably unprecedented as you see it, because you just don't see it a whole lot, especially in today and now with the portal and the NIL and all that stuff. You're probably not going to see. The team might stay up there for a couple of years. But it's just going to keep rotating. Who's got the money? And look at the money. Such a money game right now. Let's look at LSU. Okay, we decide we're not fighting Brown County. We're going to give him $54 million. We already fired the other coach and we gave him $24 million, and another guy this kind of money. We're going to hire Lane Kiffin, give him $95 million with incentives that equal $115 million. Think about the money. I mean, we're talking a college football team. That is unreal. We're talking over $200 million.
They paid Ed Ogeron. I saw it today. $17 million to leave.
I thought it was
Brian
20.
Kelly.
I thought it was 20 some or something.
I think it said 17 on the meme, so who knows that's exactly correct.
Well, I mean,
54 to Kelly, and then they pay 90 something with incentives to 115 to bring in Lane. Did you know Lane and his head coach has never coached in any championship game in college football as a head coach? And anywhere he's been, he could have
not as a head coach. No,
right. So, I'm not saying it is what it is. We'll see what happens. If it's something I can bet on, I'd probably bet against him being able to win a national championship before he gets fired, just because.
I mean, where has he been where he was going to win a championship?
He would have played for a conference championship. Would have been. I think it would have been at USC. They said.
Okay, possibly USC, but he had a winning record there. Things just kind of went south there, and it happened kind of quickly.
Right.
Tennessee.
No, he was only there 1 year.
Yeah,
and then FAU, I can't remember how many years he was there, but I'm thinking, it's amazing. Even though he did such a great job there to get the Ole Miss job, he never, I guess, played for a conference championship wherever FAU, whatever they play in. Never did it.
does people really believe that that Ole Miss was going to be playing in a championship in the same conference with Alabama and Georgia,
Exactly. They
Texas,
he's gone, and
Oklahoma?
they never have. He never made it to the SEC championship game, and he wouldn't have this year, so he would have had to win. Also, like I said, you know what? Honestly, he might be one of those guys that is a great recruiter and maybe just not a program builder. Programs, maybe he can win games, he can coach, he can get some guys in there, but the running back he let go leave the door 2 years ago went to Ohio State and won a national championship. Looked pretty good doing it. Quishon Judkins should have kept that guy around, but
but now he just jumped from the pond into a big old lake.
oh yeah,
I mean, let's face it. LSU has much more resources, better recruiting. I mean, hey,
Oh,
you
yeah.
just take the people in Louisiana
yep,
and Florida. I mean, down that way and bring those to the team, and you're already better than probably Ole Miss is now.
yep. Hey,
So,
they all loved Kelly when he was on his way down there, and
Yes.
then not for long though. And they'll all love Lane. And if somebody on the radio that they said, how long does he got before he should be competing for a SEC championship? He goes, certainly not year one. And the guy goes, no, year two. He goes, he needs to compete for a championship in year two. I mean, he doesn't get there, but he needs to be competitive to get to the championship. He goes, they got a great team. They got all the resources in the world. They got all the money in the world. He should be there in year two. So we'll see.
I mean, they'll be competitive. I mean, I think.
Will they win the games to be able to be?
I think he's a better coach than Brian Kelly. Just with his offensive mind, the things that he brings into it, he's kind of proven that.
Yeah.
I mean, my opinion. Who
Sure.
knows? I mean, stepping up into this, like I said, jumping, from the pond into the lake, where much more going on and all that kind of stuff. So, if he, I think he'll be competitive within 3 years.
Do you?
I
don't know.
think next year they'll be competitive. I think the following year they may be.
Another weird thing with the new layout is who are they playing from year to year? The schedule's going to matter. Are you going to get a Oklahoma, Florida schedule like they got the last couple of years, where you're playing everybody, or are you going to get like an A&M schedule this year where you skip a lot of teams? That'll have something to do with it.
I mean,
no doubt.
A&M and Ohio State, and you could kind of throw Indiana in there. They had a couple of them. They have a favorable schedule.
Yeah.
Normally that's not going to happen, especially in the SEC. We know he's going to get Georgia. He's going to get Alabama. I mean, those are.
And I guess Mississippi State is their arch rival. I never knew that about LSU.
Mississippi State?
I'm sorry, Ole Miss. Ole Miss, they were saying Mississippi State's their rival. No, it's not. It's actually LSU is Ole Miss's arch rival, and he went to their arch rival. I never knew that was their arch rival. That's what they were saying when he said he's going there. They're like, you're leaving us to go to our arch rival. I'm thinking, LSU's their arch rival?
I didn't know that was their arch rival. I think.
Yeah, that's what they were saying.
Whenever the games are lined up, you're Alabama, LSU. I think Alabama LSU is one of the biggest.
Oh, it was awesome way back when Saban and Les Miles. I mean, that would
I mean, it was awesome in
the
19 whenever it came down to a final play when LSU supposed to be one of the best teams ever.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, those are the kind of matchup. I never Ole Miss. I mean, you say Ole Miss and LSU as being.
Yeah, and I'm thinking.
I'm like, what?
I thought it was Mississippi State, the Egg Bowl, or whatever they call that. Yeah, the Egg Bowl. So I was just like,
well, the Egg Bowl.
Mississippi State and Ole Miss, and they're in the same state. It makes sense.
Right.
So I just thought, when has Ole Miss ever been a rival to LSU? Because LSU has been a relevant blue blood that's won championships. Ole Miss when's the last time they even played for a SEC championship? Let alone, I don't think they've ever played for a NCAA championship. I don't think they've ever been that good. No. So I don't know. I mean, that's a new one to me.
See. Yeah,
new one to me.
We'll see.
All right, we've gone for an hour. Everybody's sick of hearing us talk.
Okay, man.
So it's Thursday night. Games start tomorrow. Enjoy them on Friday and Saturday. Noon on Sunday is the final rankings, and then we're all going to get it on and see what's. So we'll talk sometime after that, and we'll lay it all out for the because we'll have a few weeks before they start playing games. I guess I don't know when they start.
Have 1 week.
Is it week one and they have time off or something? I can't remember. We'll figure it out.
Yep. Sounds
so
good.
So YouTube and Facebook, you guys know what to do. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the football. And we will talk to you all next week.